Welcome back to the Billy Meier Books YouTube channel. This video will be in a different format than we've previously done. Previously, most of the videos have been in a presentation format. And this video, a new type, will be in a discussion format. And the reason for the discussion format is to have a conversation with you, the viewer. This format will allow us to begin a conversation on the various topics that we cover in videos like this. For the discussion format, my wife of 32 years, Crystal, will be joining us as my discussion partner.
Hello everyone, this is Crystal.
Crystal has, since a year and a half since we started the channel, has done all the work behind the scenes. She's done the camera, she's done the audio, and she's done the teleprompter, and really done everything behind the scenes to make these videos possible. So it was nice of her to agree to join as a discussion partner, and she doesn't want to be on camera, which I don't blame her. This is a public video, so she'll be our unseen discussion partner behind the scenes for this video. In addition to having the discussion partner that we have now, we're going to have a forum that after this video is over, you'll be able to go to the forum and post questions, which I will answer, or post your understanding of the different topics that we cover. So it's a way for us to really enter a discussion in a study format that we can ask questions back and forth and post different views or different understandings of the topics that we cover. To do this, I've reached out to a person named James Moore. And James Moore is the owner of the Future of Mankind website. And most of you may know that from the website where you can go and read the contact notes. He has a great website where the contact notes are shown in German and English. So all of the contact notes can be written in English at that site, Future of Mankind. He also has a forum, which is called Future of Mankind Forum. And he was kind enough to provide an area for the Billy Meier Books YouTube channel for us to have these discussions on videos like this. So there's no need to quickly write down that web address. I will provide it at the end of the discussion, so you can see where to go and to join us in the discussion. This format won't appeal to everybody. I know that. It's really geared for the people who are studying Billy's material, who are studying the teaching of the truth, the teaching of creation, energy, the teaching of life. If you're new to the channel, I'd recommend watching some of the other videos that we have on the channel that are more of an introductory nature, or there's some other subjects that are on there as well that are very interesting. But this is more of an advanced format, a discussion format. So if some of you that are new to the channel don't like this format and click off and want to go watch a different YouTube video, you won't hurt my feelings. So anyway, the topic for this video is a discussion on neutrality. And I'll open. Crystal will ask questions if she has any, and then at the end of the video, we'll move the discussion to the forum, to the Future of Mankind forum, and continue our question and answer or discussion there. So this format, this new format that we're trying out, provides an opportunity for the people who are learning and studying, an opportunity to watch the video and then go to the forum and discuss their thoughts and ideas, and ask questions and get them answered and all those types of things. So that's the main purpose for this type of format. So with that, all the housekeeping out of the way, let's get started.
So Mike, you have been thinking about neutrality. Tell me about neutrality.
Yes. Okay, neutrality, or the state of not supporting one side or the other, isn't something that comes naturally. It's something that's learned. And this learned behavior of neutrality isn't something that we're taught by our parents or grandparents when we were growing up. Depending on where we're born, what culture we grew up in, and how knowledgeable and wise our parents are, all of these things are factors that condition our way of thinking. Basically, when we grow up, we learn to think and assess and judge our surroundings, our environment, and our reality as we see it. And from this learned thinking, our feelings arise. our emotions arise. And these are mixed together with ideas and assumptions and prejudice, and these all become subjective judgments. It's almost as far away from neutral as one could get. For serious students like us, and I'm a student as well, learning how to become neutral in our thinking and towards our fellow human beings is a real challenge. Or, to put it another way, it's extremely difficult to achieve. So many times I've heard people say, this guru or that guru just told me to be neutral, so I'm neutral. Well, it doesn't work that way. It takes many years of hard internal work just to begin to recognize our thoughts and the feelings that flow from them. Another experience that I've had is being with a person who's worked on their being neutral for some time. Maybe a student reading Billy's work or some other different philosophies they may have learned about neutrality and have started down that path. So they've learned this, they've started to become neutral, and then another person comes along and says something towards them. Maybe it's antagonistic, maybe it's a friend and they know how to push your buttons. And when this happens, their neutrality is gone. It's completely wiped out. And it's almost like taking a mask that they were wearing. It's just sort of been ripped off. When somebody attacks you or says something against you, boom, neutrality is gone. This example isn't unique. Every day we are confronted at work, at the grocery store, maybe even a restaurant, with very opinionated and sometimes aggressive people. And this makes being neutral even more challenging. Another example of people who are annoying us. Some of you may think that this person's annoying. It may be a coworker, could be a student, of high school or college, or even a friend or acquaintance.
Okay, so you're saying that whenever I feel frustrated or annoyed with someone, I can use those emotions as an opportunity to observe my own judgment about that person and then adjust my thinking to become more neutral. So I'm thinking about that. It sounds like this is not an easy or quick process.
No, it's not. It's, when we interact with other people, it's so easy to make a quick judgment on them. And it's so quick that most of the time we don't even realize it. We just do it, and we start these thoughts and these different things towards the other person. So no, it's not quick, and it's definitely not easy. It's so easy to go the other way and to pass judgment on the person and those types of things.
So a lot of times when I'm feeling those kind of feelings, I'm actually judging something ahead of time, and that's what creates that emotion.
Yes,
Okay.
That's it.
That's really a lot to think about when you're feeling annoyed or something.
Yes, it
to really
is.
stop and think about that.
Yeah. Am I judging the person? Yeah.
Yeah, where is this coming from?
Yes. It's difficult.
That's difficult.
So as that example, when we think someone is annoying, we're not being neutral. Whatever the situation is, whatever the reason, this is an internal assessment of the other person in our thinking. So we're thinking this way, and it's an assessment. In simple terms, in the most simple terms, we've passed judgment on them. And from this judgment that we've done on them, our thinking follows that. And for those of you who are studying and working on yourselves, you know what follows our thinking. Maybe you've seen some of our previous videos on the consciousness series. When our thinking starts, our psyche and our feelings follow the thinking. So from now on, our judgment, which is thinking, when we judge another person, that is thinking, new thoughts are created based on the judgment. And from these, new thoughts and new feelings arise. So it just sort of spirals forward and creates more and more and more of these thoughts and feelings that originated from this judgment, when we met somebody or we interacted with somebody else. Our behavior towards the person is fundamentally conditioned by this process, the one we just talked about. Another example would be religious people or people who fundamentally think different than us. This is another form of judgment of another person. If you don't like someone because they're Muslim, or if you don't like someone because they're Christian, then that's not being neutral. That is not a neutral position because of that. And this is also true for the people studying the teaching of the truth, teaching of the creation energy, teaching of life. I've read many times on various forums and blogs of students posting, well, you're a Christian and ... or the Muslim religion is so ... I'll use Billy's dots. I don't want to say something, inflammatory, but you get the idea. That's not being neutral. And the people truly interested in learning and growing have to recognize this about themselves. Okay, so hopefully these are enough examples of how our thinking is inherently not neutral. Everything that we encounter in life, we immediately assess and assign some value or clothe it in some costume or mask, and this is what we think it is. And this thinking process is what needs to be identified within each person by themselves and corrected. Realizing our thinking is not neutral is the first step to neutrality. And this is the first major point that I wanted to make. Realizing that our thinking is not neutral, and that is really the first step if you want to learn how to be neutral. This is the first major point. The second step, the second major point, is to use the first step, or to use the first major point, to identify our non-neutral thinking process as a basis for learning. Let me give you a personal example. If I met someone who is a Christian and they begin to tell me all about Jesus and their church and their youth groups and things like that, and I say, no, I'm not interested. I don't want to talk to you, and then I leave. But then after a few minutes, I think to myself, I wasn't very respectful to that person, or I shouldn't have reacted that way, or even I wasn't acting neutral towards that person. This negative reaction can also be something positive because it could lead to serve as an example for a deeper understanding of a problem within me. I could explore deeper and ask myself, why did I react that way? Or what harm would it be to listen to the person for a few minutes? Maybe I would even learn something more or different about Christianity. This way of thinking and the corrective actions, the toning back of these judgments that we make within ourselves will lead to a greater neutrality. It just depends on how everything is evaluated and processed within ourselves.
So, how often are we thinking in those non-neutral ways?
Yeah, every minute of our life. It's everything that we encounter on our really in the whole world, every person, every experience, even all the way down to, if we go out to our little garden there with the flowers. I mean, when you look at a flower or something beautiful, it's an immediate decision. You say, oh, that's so beautiful. That's a judgment. That's also a judgment. So it is so routine. It's so normal in our way of thinking, this non-neutral way of thinking, that it has to be, slowly chipped away and worked on within ourselves. It's all over. It's as often as it could be.
So pretty much all the time, every day.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That's major. So major point number 2 is learn to see your non-neutral assessments and judgments, and then learn from them. So you have step 1 and step 2. Fundamentally, it's not possible for one person to change another person's thinking, feelings, or behavior. Each individual person is the only one who can change themselves. No one else can do it. So, if we reject something in another person, that rejection remains within us and can fester until we change ourselves and accept the actions of the other person.
Okay, I'm not really clear on that point. I'm not clear on what you meant by that rejection remains within us.
Okay. So when we make a judgment on a person, let's say we don't like what they said or we don't like what they did, this type of thing. we don't like what they did as far as, we don't like this X thing that they did. That's a judgment that we've made within them. They don't know that. We have that within ourselves. And then maybe the next time you meet that person or you see him again, the first thing you'll think about is, oh, I don't like what he did, X. And then a little time goes by, you say, well, I don't like what he said or what he did as Y. And then you go away, you meet him again, and then maybe you say, well, I don't like Z either about him, the way he dresses, the way he carries himself, or anything like that. These build up over time, and they could lead to, I don't like the person, period. Or even in a worse case, I hate that person. All because we've made these judgments on the person without an understanding of why they behave that way, what their thinking is, what their background was. That's what I had meant by the rejection or the judgment. It remains with us. It has nothing to do with them. It's all within us.
Right.
That's sort of what that was to
All
cover.
those judging thoughts we hold on to about that person. Okay, and then it continues to grow.
To grow, yeah,
Unless
and
we
fester, yeah.
Rein that in
Yes,
and look at that in a more neutral way and
Yes.
consider our own thinking instead of continuing to add on to it.
right, right.
Okay.
Okay, good. And for the rejection, it doesn't matter if you reject the other person for good reasons or bad reasons. People will always have the excuses, well, he's a bad person, or I don't like what he did, or for something negative or positive. Because the principle that the other person is the only one who can change himself remains the same. There's nothing we can do about it. Only that person can make those changes. And if we coerce the person or force the person to behave in some way, then they simply submit because they have no other choice. They become a slave in submission and give up their own will. Whatever we reject in another person is our responsibility alone to cope with and to solve within ourselves.
So saying all that and thinking about all this, why, I'm still not understanding, why is it so important to have that neutral thinking all the time? Why are we working towards this?
So if we don't have neutral thinking and neutral posture, which we don't, so what happens is the way we view our outside world, the way we perceive everything about the world, people, our job, the world at large, it always comes from a perspective of our own judgment. It always comes from a position of how we see things or how we've judged things. And because of this, there's no way to see the world in a totally true and neutral way because we've judged everything. Everything, it's sort of like we see it through the eyes of the rose-colored lenses. We sort of see, we put the sunglasses on and we see the world that way. Because everything that we see and come into contact, we make a judgment in our mind. And the world, the entire world that we perceive and that we interact with is through our lenses, so it's not neutral. So the only way to get an understanding of the true reality of life is to tone back and the judgment and all those types of things and try to become more neutral in our thinking. That's the reason why.
So if we are neutral most of the time in our thinking, then we have a better perspective on the reality of what's happening around
Yes.
us and not so rose-colored,
Yes.
as they say.
Yes, not so Mike-colored or crystal-colored or other people colored. Yeah, yeah. By learning how to become neutral, we can see the world as it really is and not how we judge it to be.
Okay.
Basically, if we take the time to understand other people's actions and behaviors, as well as their thoughts and their feelings, it would lead to our acceptance of everything. And if we create acceptance within ourselves, then we're no longer bothered by the other person. I mean, that's sort of the key to the whole thing. If we accept the way the other person is, then we're no longer bothered by it. There's no problem at all.
So if you're no longer bothered by them and you're seeing the world in a truer view, because you're not putting all those judgments out, then you're more content and solid person, able to grow in your spiritual
Sure.
path.
Mm-hmm.
more easily?
Yes, yeah.
I had another question from when you were talking about other people's behavior could be negative, or you were saying, it made me think, what if someone is verbally abusing someone else right there in your presence? Is it still appropriate to remain neutral in that circumstance?
Yes, that's a great question, because I can see how that could become a problem. So it's important to remain neutral. Now, that probably won't happen if you see someone abusing someone else verbally. So what you can do is you can intervene and state your reasons why this is not right, or this is right, or whatever the case may be, by neutrally, if it's possible. It's not, because if someone's verbally abusing, someone's yelling at someone else, you already have a judgment. I mean, you may not think so, but you already have a judgment saying, oh gee, that person's a jerk to the other person, and that's not right. That's already a judgment.
Right.
But if you can remain neutral and just state to the person, say, hey, this isn't right because A, B, and C. That's a neutral position. You're saying what's right and what's wrong. You always have the ability to state your position on why something is right and something is wrong, and state that and communicate with the other people. The challenge is not to get drawn into that, not to raise the temperature and get emotionally involved and maybe start yelling to the other person or whatever it may be.
Yeah, not to get part of the conflict.
Yes.
So you're still stepping out of neutrality to do that, but then you're, in order to protect someone else, possibly, if that's your feeling that you need to do at that moment, and then step back into neutrality.
In a perfect world, you wouldn't step out of neutrality. But we're all beginning, right? We're beginning to learn all these types of things. In a perfect world, I'll just take the far extreme for an example. In the perfect world, you'd remain neutral and you'd approach the person or the people and say, hey, this isn't right because, or, you can tell them what you need to tell them without yelling, or this, whatever it may be, you can state your opinion on why it's not right, or why it is right, or why it's not right. From a neutral standpoint, you're not getting engaged. You're not taking one side or the other. You're not taking his side because he's being yelled at by the other person. But that's really not possible. As where we are as Earth people, right? It's just our nature to get involved and become not neutral and to take one side or the other.
I mean, as soon as you're saying that's not right, that's a judgment immediately.
Sure, your perspective of why this isn't right. You're free to share. You're free to share with him. Yeah, you're free to share that with him. But you're not taking a position of the other person and defending him, because now you're drawn into that. You're simply stating your opinion. You're saying this isn't right because X, Y, and Z, or this is right, this type of thing. By stating your opinion neutrally, every human being has a right to state what they think or what they think. Now, ultimately, you may think, okay, I've taken a side or not, but you shouldn't. You should just be able to remain neutral and be able to say, this isn't right because X, Y, and Z, without getting involved, without getting drawn into the emotion, or what they call drama, right? They say, without creating drama or joining the drama type of thing, without doing that.
Just making a statement of, this is my boundary.
Yeah,
this behavior is beyond my boundary. I'm not going to accept that.
Yeah.
And then let them continue, or
Sure.
just don't get drawn into it.
Yeah. Very difficult to do in practice, but that's what we're talking about this. We're talking about this so people can learn and stuff like that. So, great, perfect question. Thank you. This world is filled with people like that. It's filled with cynical people, dominant people, aggressive people. However, these people don't have any power over others or us if we possess a neutral inner posture. Because it won't get to us. If we're neutral, if someone starts attacking us and saying things, I don't like you, or you're a bad person, or you're fat, or whatever it is, that shouldn't bother you. If you have a neutral position, these people who attack us verbally, we won't get caught up in it. So there's no possible way. The offensiveness should be left out. The insults and the verbal attacks, we shouldn't allow that to become active in our own consciousness. That's just something that, as a neutral observer of the situation, if someone says something offensive, it shouldn't bother you. if you're in a neutral position. I know that's sort of,
That's extremely difficult.
yeah, difficult. Yes, but for learning or for a lesson, that's the way, we should learn how to become, in that way. Okay. Probably as a summary to that, we've talked about that quite a bit. It's not what they say, it's how we react to it is what matters. It's not what they say, it's how we react to it. And if we're neutral and don't have a reaction, then there's absolutely no problem. So this is sort of a summary. This is major point number 3. Learn to understand other people's actions and behavior and develop an inner acceptance. So that's the 3 points. Point 1, point 2, and point 3. These are the path. These 3 steps are the path to learning neutrality. Okay, as a final thought, I wanted to leave you with a very short story from Billy's past experiences. This is an excerpt from the 855th contact. Billy was talking with Quetzal, and it's read by a voice actor. His name's Chris. He's the same voice actor that reads the quotes videos with Billy's quotes. He's sort of the voice that I've chosen as Billy's English voice, on the channel, on the videos and stuff like that. So he reads this excerpt from Contact 855, and of course it's about neutrality. Take a listen to this, read along with it, and we'll talk to you on the other side.
But there is still this to be said. It is very unfortunate if it is not understood that man should remain neutral in all things of life, in his behavior, and in dealing with other people and with everything in general. For my part, I have traveled all over the world together with Svath and have visited countries on my own, such as all of Europe, West and East Pakistan, now Bangladesh and Burma, Nepal, India, and the entire Middle and Far East. I have even lived with savages, just as I have been alone in many countries in Africa, Arabia, and also in Persia, now Iran. I have lived, literally, with the Bedouins and even the cannibals and headhunters, and subsequently also with people of other faiths, such as Islam and its sects, Buddhists, worshippers of nature gods, Hindus, atheists, various Christian schools and sects, tribal religions, and Mormons, etc. But I have always, and without exception, come through the world well and without any trouble, fuss, problems, or complaints and unpleasantness. That is, if I disregard the fact that from my early youth I was teased as a result of a sect and persecuted all over the world, and often even had attempts made on my life. All because a female sectarian and a male teacher were frustrated because I stayed away from religious belief, even as a young boy. The persecution continues to this day, and the effects can be proven even in the presence of witnesses. Well, in all my travels, among and with people of various habits, customs, religions, or other beliefs, peculiarities, views, behaviors, and other things, that I have always stayed with for a short or long time, sometimes several months, I have never caused offense. I have always been neutral to everything and everyone, although, of course, I was able to openly bring up everything I had learned that moved and concerned me. And never, as a result of my religious non-belief in a God, such as the knowledge of creation and the explanation of its existence, etc., have problems or other negative things arisen because of it. Often, I was even invited to personally participate in the respective religious acts or other acts of faith, so that I could personally experience how a certain religious act had to take place, such as when I received the honorary name Muhammad Abdullah and the status of a Muslim in Karachi, Pakistan. Well, my métier has been everywhere in the world, and in every country, and at all times of my life, in every situation, always to maintain absolute neutrality and safeguard all customs and traditions and all schools of thought of a human being. Thus, I treated every person with a faith of any kind, whether religious, secular, atheistic, or close to nature, fully with respect, and did this in such a way that I neutrally observed absolutely every form of religious or secular customs and traditions, and did not allow myself to form an opinion about right or wrong or to represent it. Having an opinion is always wrong anyway, because such an opinion is always based only on assumptions, but never on absolute certainty, which is based solely on effective truth. And so, it is only through a lived neutrality that, for example, customs and traditions of other countries or people are respected and not attacked or simply ruined. However, a person who cannot be neutral and consequently cannot accept, for example, what one person cultivates in customs and traditions, or a religious or secular belief, should abstain from his cheeky words. People whose behaviors are different from what is generally customary are to be accepted as they are. However, the person who does not suit them should think deeply about himself and try to regulate himself to become a true human being of the right and treat his neighbor rightly and let him be as he is and live according to his customs and traditions, which concern no one except the one, to whom they are their own, and according to which he lives righteously.
Okay, we're back, and this concludes our discussion on neutrality. Now it's your turn. If you're interested in studying and learning along with us, join us in the conversation. Go to the Future of Mankind Forum. On the left-hand side near the bottom, there'll be a heading, like a chapter heading or a heading that will say Billy Meier Books YouTube channel. If you click on that, it'll take you in, and you should find a topic discussion that says discussion on neutrality. Anyway, thank you for joining us. Hopefully this has been enlightening and helpful for people. Join us in the forum, Future of Mankind Forum, for a discussion. And thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in the next video.